committee. And I'd like to welcome you all here. After doing this 2.5 years, this is about 3,000% more people than we normally get. So I do appreciate you turning out and showing interest in the topics. First order of business is to approve the minutes from our August 5th meeting. If I can have a motion.
I motion to approve minutes.
And we have a second. Motion carried. Our next item.
Go ahead, take it.
Sorry. Okay, we're going to move into the public comment portion of the meeting here concerning the 2 variances that are before this committee. And we'll first have a presentation. Steve Jones, correct?
Yes.
I forgot the last name there. And it will be an abbreviated presentation from what we had at the town hall meeting a couple of weeks ago. And again, want to reiterate, we are here to discuss the 2 variances. Steve, if you would.
Thank you. Chairman, Commissioners. You have to give it a second. It just said it's looking for the screens. Here we go. Got a presentation I'd like to walk you through. Again, my name is Stephen Jones. I'm with the law firm of Taylor English Duma. I'm here today on behalf of the applicant. Yeah, sure. You have a 79.82 acre parcel that is before you today. As the chairman mentioned, there are 2 variances that are before you. They are to effectuate a few design elements with respect to this plan that you have before you. This plan is for a development of single-family residences, of townhomes, and then double attached homes, which someone called duplexes. As you'll see, the design is for the state route for a divided parkway which traverses through the property with an auxiliary entrance exit of RT Road. As you're coming through the parkway, you'll see the center median lined with trees with townhomes fronting on those. Those townhomes are all rear entry, meaning that the garage and the driveway is to the rear of those properties. So as you're driving along the parkway, you see the aesthetic frontage of those townhomes. Then back behind the townhomes on the secondary streets are the duplex, the double attached units. The 2 variances that you have today are number 1, next slide, to vary table 4A of the zoning ordinance so that the maximum size of this zoning district is 40 acres. 40 acres plus 2, you almost get to the 80, which is the 70.982 of this site. Number 2 is for the driveway area. There's another provision in your ordinance that says that driveways and parking areas for residences shall not exceed 25% of the front yard of the residences. Those are the 2. So let's tackle them in order. The first being the variance to the development size. As you'll see, this is the development at full scale. Again, it's almost 80 acres, which means it's almost double that 40. So what would it look like if you just had one that was 40 acres? Next slide. Well, you'd have a dividing line through it with a division line and either section them off and have fire access running it towards somewhere else, or B, just have the emergency access splitting them off so they're 2 separate and distinct things. We don't think that that's a wonderful way to do things. We don't think that's the best layout for the development. That's why we're asking for the variance, so that you can have the district size be larger than 40. Next slide. Another thing that you could do is, hang on, it's a little Another thing that would be permitted is, sorry, I must be having trouble connecting with the internet, is this would be a multifamily product with your typical garden style. Again, dividing it into 3 sections with single access for each. That's another option that you could do without the variance. So the next variance is with respect to the driveway. On the duplex units, the way that they're arranged, we want them to have front entry garages, because remember, you're coming off the parkway with the townhomes, so you'll then come around and enter into the front of those. Without the variance, it creates an odd look, either where A, you've got something resembling on-street parking in the front, which I'll show you, B, you've got a shared driveway. So again, you'll see here, you have those traditional pull-in driveways with garages along all those duplexes on the outside. This is what you could do without the variance, and that's the on-street parking. You'll see the front walk-ups, which we'll get to, we'll have a zoom in on in a second, but this is just parking at the front and then a walk-up to the house without a garage. We prefer the units to have a garage. So what you'll see here, on the left is with the variance. So you've got your garage, your entrance, your taper, normal setup. The middle is what you could do with the garage to get to that percentage. And just as a note, with the variance, you're looking at about 42.8% coverage of the front yard. But go back one, Steve. Get back one more. The idea here is to have your green space and your common area and your play areas and everything that you would typically have in the front yard, and these common areas where people can congregate and come together as a community within this development. So next slide. And next slide. And with the reduction, we can also pull the buildings closer so that the residents also have individualized backyards. So we really think it's the best of both worlds. You get the common area, you get a driveway with a garage, 12-foot wide, and you get rear access, a backyard. The middle one is what you could do with the driveway, a tapered in driveway. So it's a shared 12-foot driveway into a single car garage on each side of the unit. To get to the right dimensions and to get under that 25%, you got to push the unit back so that you can have that flare out at the end of the driveway to make the percentages work. Not the best design. It really results in inefficiencies, not the best driveway look, not the best street appeal, just not as good as what you could get with the variance. The next option is, on the next slide, give you a zoom in, so just get you closer. This is what it would look like with the variance. To get you to the 42%. Here it is without the variance, or with the variance and without the variance and the shared driveway. And then finally, here it is without the variance with on-street parking, no garage, and a walk-up. This would technically comply with the ordinance. It's not something we love. It's not something we think residents would love, but it would get you there. And it's something that we've seen in the market, right, with on-street parking in front of the units and then a walk-up. But we really think that the market today wants a garage and wants a driveway. And also what the driveway does is allow for additional off-street parking. So you get an extra spot in the garage, and then you have additional parking in the driveway as well. Next slide. So with those two variances, which are before you, we'd ask that you grant both so that we can, A, bring cohesion in a central parkway to the development, and then 2, bring traditional driveways that roll into a garage, aren't shared, and don't have on-street parking. So those are the 2 items before you. We'd ask that you recommend to the City Council approval of both those variances. If you have any questions, be happy to answer those at this time. Thank you for your time tonight, service to the city. And like I said, if you have any questions, be happy to answer those.
We'll hold our questions until after the public speaks. Okay, our first speaker, Andy Benega.
Hi, I'm Andy Benyon.
Andy, would you mind going over to
Yeah,
the podium and there's a button in the middle underneath there, and that way folks can hear you. There you go.
There you go, okay. I would encourage you to vote no for these to request, and the reason I say that is because what you're doing is you're opening the door to the future. If there's someone else that brings a project in that may not be as good for Woodbury as this particular one, as they're saying this one will be, if you've given somebody a variance and given them permission, you gotta let everybody, or be prepared to defend it in court. This city can't afford to go to court with other developers, okay? And the same thing would apply to driveways, right? That means somebody that's building their house or whatever, small houses, large driveways. Again, you're opening a Pandora's box that does not go along with how everything has been planned for here in Woodbury. I would encourage you not to open us up to the liability of future lawsuits over these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. By the way, I'm the secretary also. Give me a chance here. Kathy Harvin.
Just really had some things I wanted to read to make decisions so I can make understanding for me. When we look at the purpose and the intent of the code, it says to guide and regulate orderly, rational, and efficient growth, land development, and land use through the city in accordance with a comprehensive plan. So my question is, does the city have a comprehensive plan that this fits into, that you would have, that would let things come into the city at this magnitude and this site, thinking about our infrastructure and other things like that? And I know that has to do with the variances as well. And again, I may be going backwards in time, but in looking at the zoning, and if you look at under 2, we're still confused as to the zone, the land, the map, and the overlay. I think there's still some issues that needs to be addressed regarding what should be put on this property and what can be put on this property. And I'm trying to get to my phone it's on a zoning 2.9, and excuse me for waiting. It's not moving, but it does. What it says is when the zoning was put in 2019, there's some question as to what the zoning was and if it was zoned appropriately at that time, and is it a progressive process or was it done just there? And was that R20, R30, R10, or what exactly was that zone? And should it be going back? And if it's unclear and it's uncertain, then there's a process you go to through the uncertainty to try to figure out what the zoning actually is appropriate for that property itself. And those are my 2 things, because again, do we have a comprehensive plan for growth and building? And the fact is this actually a certainty as far as the zoning that is actually being committed to?
Okay. Thank you very much. And to address that on the comprehensive plan, I have not been presented one. And so I cannot answer that question, but we'll find that out.
Okay.
The other portion that Kathy has brought up, which is zoning district boundary uncertainty, which is the zoning section Z 2-9. And I'll just read it here briefly. I think that's what she was looking for.
Yes, I was.
Okay. Where areas appear to be unclassified in the official zoning map and classification cannot be determined by the provisions of this ordinance, such areas shall be considered to be classified as RS20, which is the most restrictive zoning within the city, until action is taken to amend the official zoning map. Okay. What I have discussed with Kathy earlier and other folks, I will refer that to the city attorney to interpret whether, when the zoning, or whenever the ordinances were adopted in 2019, what the intent was. Okay, we know what the intent was from the existing planning and zoning committee at the time, But I'm not in a position to make the determination whether the new classifications which allow the RMH, which is the zoning classification that we're discussing here for this development. My interpretation was it came in at that point in time. Other interpretations was it's got to be voted in. So, city attorney will look at that, and if he doesn't feel like he's got the capability or the capacity as a zoning and planning attorney, we will definitely ask for one to come in. So,
Thank you.
okay. Vicki, hopefully I didn't take any wind out of your sails.
Well, you did actually. That's what I was asking the zoning board to do, was to consider, if necessary, use outside counsel who has background in zoning, because we appreciate these folks coming here and the developers doing their part, but they have their representation, and quite frankly, their attorney doesn't represent the citizens of Woodbury and us. So I was getting concerned from watching the Facebook post, which we appreciate at home when I can't be present, and I enjoyed watching those. But I became concerned, and my husband and I, because we were on the Planning and Zoning Committee for a time, and we believed, and when we passed the zoning ordinance and the map that we attached to that, which constituted the new zoning ordinance, we believed what it said, that it protected the city from sprawling growth, because this is a small town. We want to develop, and it gave our city council members and our planning and zoning board time to plan for that growth. So to say that this can automatically be built on that property goes against that plan, because that was a work in progress. The districts were never designated. This zoning ordinance, the reason it was so big was because it gave us time to actually designate and amend the map that we had. So in the meantime, this is how we,
Interpret.
thank you for that word, interpreted that line, and just probably what you're saying too. But just to reiterate that, any prior zoning and the prior zoning ordinance that did not correlate with the new zoning districts would automatically go to RS20, which is the most restrictive residential zoning. And that makes sense, because it was protecting us to give us time to come in as a community and work on our plan for zoning to update to the new ordinances. So I'm just asking that please do not move too fast with this, because whatever's done by us, it won't affect, let me back up. Whatever we do now sets a precedence for what can be done later, and we can be held responsible for that. So I would ask too, I know we have a city attorney, but I know his feelings wouldn't be hurt if we needed outside counsel on this, because this is a big deal for this community. It affects the region. It affects the county. We are very rural. We have limited services as it is. And I know that the developer is saying that based upon what they've seen, it will be built out in 15 years, but if the market will allow, it can be built quicker. And, when you have a project that can be quite lucrative, resources can be brought in from other projects going on. They're gonna go where, and it's just the fact, the business, you're gonna go there where, where it makes you the most money. So, those are my concerns, and I appreciate, the zoning board. Thank you for what you did.
And I want to thank both of you for adopting 700 pages of zoning material ordinance here.
It protects us, that's why it's so intensive.
Okay. Committee, do you have questions? Of Steve. By the way, this is Michael Holmes and Shirley Holmes, no relation.
I would ask the question the phases and how you're coming up with the idea of how many people are gonna fill these things, these apartments, where you're gonna get these people from to fill all these houses up that you're gonna build. If we say, okay, go with the variance, go for 80 acres, go with it, it gets built, where are these people gonna come from?
Yeah, absolutely, great question. So, to be clear, the variance is an issue about the dividing line, not about the scope or scale of the development. But the applicant is in the development business as well as the residential business. And we see a need for not only this type of product, but the location for folks that want to come to this area and like the town and like everything that the town has to offer. One thing that we've looked at is, and I think at the town hall, there were folks that spoke about where they commute to from here. And so we looked at, as we were looking at this site and as we were looking at what to develop here and what to propose here, the commuting distance from Woodbury to job centers where folks may be employed. And so this is that map. It just draws a radius of places that you can commute to within 30 minutes to an hour, and it's pretty extensive. I don't want to rehash it from last time, but there's quite a bit. And then another thing is the incremental development that we have proposed, that we envision, and one of the public speakers, one of the folks in public comment spoke to was the phasing development. And so we're anticipating between 26 to 7 units, actually 8 down, sorry, 7 down here, from 26 to 38. And so as the market ticks up, or as these units are taken up, they will be developed slowly through 28, and that assumes a start in 26. Another thing is that rooftops drive everything else. So as additional rooftops go in on this site, we would hope that would drive additional jobs and additional opportunities within the city and within the surrounding areas, so that those folks may have opportunities closer to home than the commuter radius that we use to help look at employment zones around the development. Does that make sense?
Can we see the slides, sir? See the slides? Were they from, oh yeah, they were the previous ones.
With the 80 acres for the development, how many acres of that is supposed to be green space?
We've got it on the table. That's a great, there we go. It's 61%.
61%.
Yeah, so you have this open space here surrounding the water feature, got a dedicated open field here, and then you've also got dedicated open space throughout. So the majority of the site remains undeveloped, or at least open.
And with the driveways, so with it being, why was it designed for that measurement of the driveways from the beginning, if you already knew? Yeah.
So we did, we looked at that. We looked at this option, which is the plan. And I don't have a blow up of that one. But this plan behind you, that's what we looked at originally, with on-street parking and with the addition line. And that's the reason for the variance. And that's kind of what you see right here with this on-street parking. So we looked at that, but we think this is better. Better for residents, better aesthetically, it's just better.
So that's something better we could get if that's housing.
So I don't think it changes. I mean, we still with.
But you're talking about how much space you need in the front yard.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So, I mean, again, we could still do the on-street parking, This is really about the opportunity to have a garage with a driveway to access. So it's not really tied to density, it's more tied to the parking for the units.
Steve, going back to the public hearing last week, you stated that you would not build into the second phase or start at the next phase until you had upwards of 75% occupancy.
Probably.
I know that that's not a solid number, but is that a number that the owners are looking at, you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's based on uptick and the rate of uptick, right?
Of course.
So, you know, if you have 75%, but it took you 3 years to get there, I don't think you're gonna move to the next phase at that point. If it's 75% and it took you 2 days to get there, it's the rate
Right,
of uptick.
I think the concern is whether, I think the concern is building too much too soon,
Correct.
which is, okay. Just want to verify that. Yes, sir, I'll allow it.
Okay, well, let's question about what you've got up there. If this is not put into 80 acres and you're looking at approximately 125 to 135 units that are on the top 40, same on the bottom 40, for instance, I only see one entrance and one exit. Is that gonna fit into fire codes with that?
Great question, very great question. We would have to have alternative entrances like you see. This isn't the best one, but you see you have alternative fire entrances here. And what you'd have is you'd have probably in the division line, one entrance for one would serve as the fire entrance for the other. You just have a dividing line, something like a Knox box if you're familiar with that product. A gate that's only accessible by EMS or fire.
Okay, so the plan is to bring the road all the way through from the get-go.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're gonna put the road all the way in and we're gonna put a gate up there. And nobody has access to get through that gate to get out, should there be a problem on the upper side.
If we were limited to the 40 acres, what is done in developments when you have an access that is not a dividing line or is a dividing line, then it is just an access that is only accessible by EMS. So as a resident, you would only have one way typically in and out, but in the event of an emergency, first responders have access through another way. Does that make sense?
It does, but if there's a fire by the entrance, everybody's stuck inside of the facility. They can't get out the other side. Fire and EMS can come in, but they can't leave.
Right, which is one reason.
Is that correct?
Which is a reason, well, your fire and EMS would open it up, but that's one reason why you don't want to limit yourself on a development like that to arbitrarily shut it off only for EMS. That's a great reason for the variance.
Okay, so if the variance is not given for this, your solution is just going to be a lock gate to separate the two, and only EMS and fire have access.
Yes, that would be one way to accomplish what the ordinance requires at this time.
Okay,
Yeah.
and fire marshal's not going to insist you have extra exits there.
The International Fire Code allows you to do that.
Okay, so you don't have to have that rear exit. It's going to be choice of the people whether they want to live with
Yes, sir.
limited access.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, we might punch out, and we see we've got a lot of road frontage. We might add a street if it makes sense during the design, but we would divide the sectors of the development in that way.
Help me understand, because is the traffic going both ways, in and out, or is it one way around, or is it moving back and forth, and then you got cars parked on the street, and you got people going this way and this way?
In our preferred plan?
In the plan, whichever, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. That was hard to see, so I'm gonna bring the board over there. So this would be a parkway, two ways. to a roundabout at the park that comes out. This would also be a two-way, but this is a divided parkway. So it's two ways. And all the other streets would be two ways. The only ones that would likely be one way or could be one way are these rear alleyways that access the driveways to the townhomes. But everything else would be a two-way street.
So that's a preferred plan?
Correct.
So what happened to all the green space in the middle?
This one still has it. These are just these are our amenity parks, and then you have your other green space. This is the same plan we've always shown. Did that answer your question? Sorry.
Somewhat, yeah. It
Okay,
still
let's
looks
get
like
back
a dead
on
end.
topic here.
All right.
Okay. But, good conversation. Been in the fire service 30 years, I appreciate your comment back there.
Well, I'm just
And,
reminding
and-
everybody that if the variance is not given, what you're looking at is gonna make it very undesirable.
Exactly, and not only does the developer have to provide, abide by our ordinances, there's obviously state and county ordinances also. There's plenty of time. Any other, I'll allow, any other questions on the variance?
I just wanted
Vicky?
to know where the sidewalks are going to be located.
Where the what now?
The sidewalks, where would they be located?
Okay.
On the plan, just curious.
And that is something that, according to the Appendix B,
Yes.
it's on both sides of the street.
Their appendix B or our?
Our Appendix B, the ordinance.
Okay, so on
Side of the
either
street.
side of the street. So there's not any inside, outside the main thoroughfare?
No,
Okay.
no, yeah, there'd be sidewalks in front also,
In front, and then
Okay.
through the main road.
the main thoroughfare, and that would be, and not all comes later with their plat and everything. Okay. Along with that, you got curbs, and gutters, and you've got street lighting. Yeah, along with a lot of other things that are out there. So you're not seeing the final product here, obviously, because all that has to be developed. Yes, sir.
I'm just a quick comment, just by listening, just an opinion. I think if you don't allow the variances, you're gonna have, like, on-street parking, you're gonna wind up with a lot of congestion. A lot, if you don't have driveways and garages for people to get off the street.
Point taken. Thank you, sir. Okay, last chance. Anyone else?
Are they mostly rental or purchase? And I
Steve?
apologize for not being at the last one.
Yes, ma'am. Although that's on the scope of the variance, since you missed the public comment, if you have any other questions.
I would see what here.
Yeah, no. If you've got any others, happy to answer them. The intent here is for these to be rental units. At market, there were some comments at the town hall that I want to dispel. These are market rate, they're not subsidized, they're not Section 8. We would vet tenants. Everyone here is going to be above board and a good quality because the intent is for the developer to own these into perpetuity. Now, one of the things that the variance does permit, and this is a great question, is with the driveways as opposed to the on-street parking or the parking lots, it does permit them to be platted and set out so that in the future, should the market shift away from single-family residential for rent, which is a huge deal in the market, which you see a lot of young folks really want, especially with interest rates, down payments, inflation, things like that. If the market moves back to a more for sale idea, the variance would allow us to develop and plat them in a way to transition back to that. And so you could transition back piecemeal or in part. And then to another question that came up along that line, what you would do then is then you would have a common HOA that required maintenance and upkeep so that everyone continued to maintain them to the caliber that we did. Because, when we're owning the entire development, we have a vested interest to keep paint maintenance, right, so.
Mr. Jones, when we were at the town hall a couple weeks ago, and numerous people mentioned market rates, and you mentioned market rates, okay? But is it a Sonoya, Fayetteville, Newnan market, or Woodbury market? Those are two vastly different markets. You know, can you kind of answer that?
It's definitely a Woodbury market, and, you know, the way, what you're driving at is the way that you'd have to determine that is in that piecemeal process that is being developed phase by phase, so that the market drives it, right? You look at rents in the surrounding area and start drawing concentric circles out and bringing those rates here, starting with the.
And I saw a trailer for 2 bedrooms and 1 little bath, and it was $850 a month. So
But I don't
you're
think
still
any of
talking
these are
market
gonna
rate
be
is
$850 a
expensive.
month, you know? And don't get me wrong, I'm not dead set against this, I think we need business, we need growth. It needs to be taken piecemeal at a time, you know what I'm saying? That's what we did, that's just, we got what's best for the town, you know? I don't want to see a development started like that, and then, you know, we got, like you said, you know, the bill 27, you said 3 years later, we still got 24 of them set, you know what I'm saying? I'd like to see it, you know, we have a lot of stuff going on in our sewer and water that's gotta be addressed, you know? And, I mean, I'm not dead set against you, just, I think some things need to be in protection of the city. Thank you.
Last call. We've kind of gotten off the subjects here, but,
Let's not break.
no, we appreciate it.
But I just want to ask again, as far as what we said prior to voting on the variances, we're going to move forward with the questions to the lawyer, as even as the appropriateness of the.
Right, as a matter of fact, you're leading into let me declare the public hearing closed.
Okay.
At this time. The chair would entertain a motion to seek the advice of the city attorney or other qualified attorney to determine the appropriate zoning of this particular parcel.
Have that motion.
Second that motion.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next would be the request for variance to, let me just read it here. Request a variance for table 4A of the zoning ordinance, the city of Woodbury, to permit the maximum district size of 40 acres to increase to 79.82 acres. Would entertain a motion for approval, or make a motion, however you want to make a motion.
I make a motion to, not to approve it. We do need to grow, but I think we need to do it in the correct way, follow what we have in place, because this leave it open for other people, other developers to come in and do the same thing. So my motion is to not approve it.
Not to approve it.
I motion also not to approve it, for the simple reason that we don't want to start a project, and pretty much not be able to finish it in a timely manner that we think we should be able to finish it in. As he was saying, we don't want to have construction started and all of a sudden the money in the bottom falls out of the market or whatever the case may be. So I'm going to say that we'll take our time. The ordinances are set. We have to uphold the ordinances until there's a more viable reason to change them. Right now, I think we need to just make sure that we hold on to what we got, because we're trying to establish everything as we go.
So I'll phrase it this way, that you're recommending that the variance request to increase the size be denied.
Yes.
Okay. Call for a vote. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? secondary request is to, let me just read it. Variance request to section Z7-11A of the zoning ordinance of the city of Woodbury to permit driveways and parking areas for residents that exceed 25% of the front yard of such residences. Now, we were given 3 proposals there. I'll entertain a motion, just whatever motion you feel like making. Let's do it like that.
Okay, my motion for that is also denial and not approved for the driveway to be, decreased. Cause they're asking for us to decrease the size of it, right, correct?
They're asking to, their preference would be to allow the driveway to take up approximately 42.8%
of the yard, correct.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye. Those opposed? Recommendations that will be going forward to the city council is that the city attorney verify the appropriate zoning for the proposed development, and the recommendation for planning and zoning is that both variances be denied. Any other business? Thank you all for being here this evening. We are now entertaining a motion to adjourn.
Motion for dismissal.
To adjourn.